Words.
What? Where? There. Here. At East Leeds FM.
In 2012, the World Health Organization told that there were 285 million visually impaired people in the world. Not trying to espouse any derision, but of the world's population of 7.7 billion, I think a greater percentage may have sight, but totally lack vision. An iconic quote of which I identify as stellar, coined by a blind and deaf author, activist and educator, the legendary Helen Keller, in a display which can only be described as phenomenal, a case of the literal blind leading the proverbial. In the midst of a crumbling world, when examined, John Lennon pleaded with humanity to just imagine, to not be mentally confined. The journey only begins with the end in mind, and an unfortunate history or present reality is simply not enough to resign. Oh yes, I know how tough life can be, trust me, but all unfortunate circumstances only serve as fodder for the visionary. You see, vision gives you a reason, it tells you a why, it gives pain a purpose and acts as a compass, and when things go awry, vision is the wings that allows one to fly. Oh, what a place our world could be if we could close our eyes for a minute and simply see the possibility. Vision is a gift of which one must cherish. It is written in Proverbs that without it nations perish. Henry Thoreau said the path of least resistance lead to crooked rivers and crooked men. Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again and again and again. This is the factor that separates the average from the great. The ability to persevere, endure, know when to run, know when to wait, ignore the hate and the need to be articulate. Vision initiates purpose and precedes passion. It is the impetus for action, provides traction and nullifies distraction. Redundancy and stagnation are only symptoms for a people that lacks vision. This is the factor that separates the chickens from the eagles that soar. The need to sacrifice, endure, mature, and be driven from the depths of your very core. But here's more. Vision forces you to keep your eyes on the prize, to eradicate the doubts, the negativities, the lies, and know intuitively otherwise. It was vision that allowed Ray Charles, Fanny Crosby, Andrea Bocelli, Stevie Wonder, and Anne Sullivan to realize that seeing a bright future does not require eyes. In dedication to my mother, mentor and guide, author, philanthropist, and quintessential visionary, Dr. Cindy Trim.
Well, what an empowering start to the show, huh? And we don't usually start with playing a track, do we? But we like to keep it mixed up around here and Loudspeaker, so keep you all on your toes and that. But yeah, here we are, Loudspeaker with me, D3.
And I'm Sarah Autumn.
And we have just been listening to Gurman and his piece Visions, which was really great, I think, because it kind of encompassed all the different definitions of visions in one piece, do you not think?
Yeah, so we came across Gurman when we were searching for some pieces that related to the word vision, because that's the festival theme, and of course it has so many different meanings. So we thought it kind of captured that quite well to start us off, to think about what vision means to you and what vision means to the artists that are here today to share their work. One of the most powerful lines for me was when he talked about, people, we can have sight, but we quite often can lack vision. So I think it's a good start to the show.
Yes, I do.
Have a look for German online by simply typing in German in search. It's Gurman. So that's German. Thank you very much.
So, Sarah, this is our second Loudspeaker live show, and it's also our 8th Loudspeaker show, and I think we've been doing pretty well recently, don't you think?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. We've got so many great artists on the show every single episode, and an extra special occasion today because we're sharing live in the chapel. This episode is part of the Writing on Air Festival, which has been broadcasting all weekend on Chapel FM.
And if you haven't already guessed, the topic for this show is vision, which German introduced to us very well, and there's many different definitions to the word vision. And so it's been interesting exploring the different meanings and interpretations of that word. So we're going to share some of those things with you today.
So artists have submitted a range of pieces on the topic vision, and that's the format of our usual shows. People submit their work and in reflection on the topic. So without further ado, we will introduce our fantastic spoken word artist tonight. Live in the studio, ready to perform, we have Laura Graham. Woo! Woo! Make sure we show a lot of love. We have Henry Raab, just walked through the door, the punk poet. We've got Pamela Crowe also here with us today. We've got Keeks in the front. We have Bethany Rose joining us today. And we also have Terence Isaac. Thank you so much for being here with us. We'll also be interviewing Peter Spafford, who put this whole festival on air together with all of the other team members at Chapel FM, and he's also a spoken word artist. So he'll be joining us a little while later to speak to us about his work and about Chapel FM.
And also in the studio, we also have some of our spotlight guests ready to share who they are and what they do locally. So we have Sam and Liz from Stand Up to Racism. Woo! Yeah, you guys. This is looking at me like me. And we also have Lewis from COP26 Coalition and Roadblock in the house. I will say at this point, we've had a couple of cancellations.
We'll have, unfortunately, due to various current
it?
times, circumstances, we've had a few
restrictions,
a few cancellations on spotlights. However, we also are joined by Leanne.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, we do have another spotlight, Leanne, and Leanne will be telling us about a writers group here in Yorkshire that she'd like to share with us today. So thank you, Leanne, for being a last-minute spotlight. As this is a special Loudspeaker Live event, we're also broadcasting live on YouTube and also live on Chapel FM radio. So you can go and check out these YouTube or radio broadcasts afterwards for those in the room. And for those that are listening now on Chapel FM, you can also see us in person if you check out the YouTube channel on Chapel FM. You can find us on facebook.com/loudspeaker.
So, without further ado, we would like to introduce our first poet who's going to be performing live in the studio, and this is Laura. Laura Graham is an emerging poet from Leeds and 2022 National Slam Poetry finalist. She has been shortlisted for Leeds Poetry Festival competition and performed at the Vagina Festival, Sonnet Youth and on BBC Radio. She writes about midlife, and writing poetry is her midlife crisis. Oh, I've just read that now, and it is perfect. I can't wait to hear this.
Give it up for Laura!
I usually write kind of comedy poetry. The first one is more of a saddish poem, which is a little bit unusual for me, and it's about the end of a friendship, and it's called Friend for a Season. I see you sometimes. I don't think you see me. It's hard to hide in a parked car, but your gaze never wanders. I see you sometimes, running in the park, heels kicking cast-off leaves, restless, never breathless. I see you sometimes and wonder how this cotton wool confidant became spectral stranger, someone I used to know. I see you sometimes, where a last held your bones, felt you might break to a gentle touch. You said I was a friend for a season. Maybe I just saw you a bit too much. Thank you. The second piece is a bit more joyful. It's a midlife piece, which I write about a lot, and it's called Midlife Manifesto. I will take up space, not just as my once whittled waist escapes its restraint, but because I exist. I will not jump aside for strangers. I will sit alone in the pub, happily impervious to the heat-seeking rays of male gaze. I will keep dancing with no, like no one is watching caveat. I am a real-life midlife goddess. You may watch if you want. I'll drink more water, draw deep bursting breaths of song-filled air and gaze at stars. I will not buy a live, laugh, love sign, but religiously follow this home base holy trinity. I will not judge people who buy live, laugh, love signs. I will not judge people for oversharing in team calls by using words such as overshare. I will not judge my achievements and find them lacking. I'll sort out my pension. I'll get that smear test. I'll learn the difference between a list poem and just a to-do list. I will hold space, listen to older people, entwine their memories with mine, be their custodian, their witness, their archivist. I will notice the pure presence of a smartphone-free octogenarian and put down my phone. I will not hold back, sharing decades-won wisdom as the space between thought and word elongates. I will give myself space, understand that annoyance at adults with grandparents is unprocessed grief. People with 2 kids, the same. Adults with great-grandparents are taking the piss a bit, in my opinion. I'll stop putting off things I don't do because I won't do to the utmost perfection. I'll find joy in imperfect but done, like my glorious, hedonistic, meandering youth, like this manifesto for a magnificent midlife. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was fantastic. I remember I saw you, didn't I, at Left Bank, and I saw you do that piece, and I swear to God, it just hit me the same way this time as it did at Left Bank, especially that line about, is it grown-ups with grandparents? Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you.
So next up, we have the first of our spotlights tonight. One of the things that we like to do here on Loudspeaker Radio, I almost forgot the name of the show. One of the things that we like to do here is to spotlight the organisations that are doing work across the city, and we have different spotlights every single month. Today the topic is visions, so we're looking at organisations that have got vision or are thinking about the future and the kind of world they'd like to see. So I'm going to introduce Sam and Lizzie over to your left from Stand Up to Racism.
Thanks very much, Sarah. And it's brilliant to be part of this Festival of Visions, because that's really what we do in Stand Up to Racism. We all have a vision of a society without racism, and wouldn't that be what a wonderful world that would be?
A wonderful world.
Where people weren't discriminated against because of the colour of their skin or their religion. It's just something that I feel very passionate about. Another one of our activists wants to be here tonight, and like some of your other Spotlight people, Causa from our organisation has come down with something tonight, and she would love to have shared her vision of that as well. But we are people of vision, but we campaign as well. We campaign wherever there is something to do with racism and injustice, whether that's fighting against the far right, which we have beaten back in this country, which is absolutely brilliant. We have a strong history of fighting fascism in this country, as we have in Leeds. We have a strong history in Leeds as well of fighting for justice, supporting the Windrush generation, and also at the moment there are horrific laws that could come into being pushed by our Home Secretary Priti Patel and our Prime Minister Boris Johnson. There are 3 bills, all of whom have got very racist connotations. So one of our things at the moment is campaigning against them and allowing people to show their vision that they don't want that sort of society, that they do want to make their anti-racist voices louder. So, for example, on the 20th, there's a day of action against the Nationality Bill because of the terrible racist connotations that it has. And we need to make sure that we give a voice to the victims of racism and we give a voice to the people that aren't sufferers of racism but want to support those that are. And that is our passion, really. And we are of different ages, we are from different communities, but we all share that view that actually people aren't born racist. Actually, children are not born racist. And actually, that top-down racism that comes from the government, from the state, from institutions, actually needs to be challenged. And actually, we can live in a world where racism doesn't exist. And I will never, ever lose grasp of that vision, because it keeps me going and makes me, even though sometimes it's really hard, actually, we have to stand together. And I do think that last year we saw a glimpse of that with the fantastic Black Lives Matter movement, actually how inspirational that was. People sharing that idea that injustice has to be stopped, and we want to live in a world where black people aren't discriminated against. And I think that was such a wonderful thing to see last year in the middle of the pandemic, and that really does show us that there's hope for the future. I'm going to stop now and let Liz have a little go on the microphone because I've hogged it too much now, but I really feel passionate, as we all do as activists, that we can live in a world without racism.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks a lot, Sam. I'm Liz. I've just had a look round and I think I might be the oldest person in the room tonight, so therefore you've got to listen to me. I wanted to say that Sam finished with the 3 bills. The first bill is called the Police and Crime Sentencing Bill. The next one is the Nationality and Borders Bill. And the third bill is about reducing rights for asylum seekers. These bills will pass, I have to say. But nevertheless, what Parliament does, the streets can undo. And that is what Stand Up to Racism is all about. Because what they want to do, this government, the British state, is they want the society in which we live to turn against people like asylum seekers, whether they've arrived on a plane with a passport or in a dinghy on the Channel. They want to turn us against gypsies and travellers who will be particularly affected by these bills. I watched a marvellous video this morning in Manchester where they're preparing for the People's Assembly tomorrow, in which they're going to march against the Tory government. And in that meeting was all gypsies and travellers speaking with such beauty and poetry and reality that it actually gave me a little tear. And I would really urge people to look at that online, People's Assembly Against the Tories, which takes place tomorrow. The videos will be there for you to see on YouTube. Sam and I and everybody else would actually like you to join Stand Up to Racism, and it's very easy for you to do. Just Google standuptoracism.org.uk. Leeds Stand Up to Racism has a very active Facebook page. On Sunday, the 17th of October, we're actually putting out live something like this on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter Stand Up to Racism's international conference. Speakers like Gary Young will be reporting from the US after Trump, and he has been a Guardian columnist for a very long time. Speakers from Greece, speakers from Italy, speakers from several countries of the African continent will get together. Trade unionists, health workers, teachers will come and tell us what they're doing to stand up to racism in this society. I would like to urge people to have a look online at the history of the beating back of the racists and fascists in this country from 1936, Cable Street in London, where the whole of the community beat back not only the fascists, but also the police that were protecting the fascists. The demonstration was so big that they stopped 17,000 racists. Simple as that. That's what we're about. When the call is required, we are able to build mass demonstrations. Our most recent one was in Batley in Yorkshire in June of this year, where the fascists had the audacity to stand candidates in that by-election where Joe Cox was actually murdered by a British fascist. So we mobilised and we took over the town centre. We were bigger. We were so big that they didn't even show. That is what we are about. We are not just about opposing racism. We say if you build big enough right across your society, they can never come back and organise. Racism, I don't think, will ever go away completely under a system like we live, because it's a system of divide and rule. But you can make them a tiny minority that dare not even speak. That's what we're about. That's what I'm about. And I'm very proud to have been doing things like this since I was 6 years old. So please check out everything that you can online associated with the history, the old and the modern history of beating back the fascists and beating back the racists. Look up the Anti-Nazi League Carnival. Look up the Love Music, Hate Racism, poetry and music festivals, because it's all there to see. But above all, we'd like you to join Stand Up to Racism, because it takes all of us, whether you're black or white, Jewish or Muslim, of no religion at all, whether you're gay or straight, whether you're a transgender person, a young person, there's a place for you in Stand Up to Racism. It's a mass movement, and it will make sure that the majority of the people in our society are not just not racist, but actually anti-racist. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Oh, that was fantastic. Thank you, Liz and Sam from Stand Up to Racism. And yeah, anybody that wants to get involved with Stand Up to Racism, Sarah and I do it all the time, don't we, Sarah? We are total Stand Up to Racism activists. But just Google it is the message. Google it. It's a big organisation. There's stuff all over the place in whichever town, city that you are from. So make sure you get involved, because of a vision of no racism, a world with no racism, is a vision that I, for one, would love to see.
Me too. Thank you so much, and thank you for you both for sharing absolutely fantastic, inspiring information. They shall not pass, Lizzie. So thank you. Oops, sorry, I have gone too far on my sheet that tells me exactly what to do. Up next, we have Henry Raby. Hi. Oh, there he is. He's a punk poet based in York. His debut collection, I'm going to start this again. Sorry, I know it's live. Henry Raby is a punk poet from York. His recent collection, or debut collection, Nerd Punk, was published by Burning Eye Books in 2018. And he co-founded the poetry and spoken word organisation Say Out. He is part of Vandal Factory Theatre, who have toured shows across the UK to all manner of unique and underground spaces. Thank you so much for being with us today, Henry. Give it up for Henry Raby!
Yay! You can choose the big or the small mic. We've got different levels.
suits my short frame.
Do you reckon? Do you reckon?
Short, scrawny millennial frame. Thank you very much.
Dominate the mic.
So technically, I am a member of staff here, so I don't know if I'm being paid to be here to perform. But I'm the broadcasting worker here. But I'm really appreciate the fact that I can remove the lanyard.
Hey! There's a vision.
Form the true side to Henry Raby, rarely seen. This is a poem, and it goes exactly like this. Strike up the band, my son. I'm coming home to lay my weary bones in an English castle. The lion rests before it roars. I'm coming home from fighting in the culture wars. I led a charge against the PC brigade, rooted out the woke agenda. When they cry diversity, I say nay, not for Britannia. Strike. So I'm being ironic, right? Like, you get that. You're not like, hold up. He's the guy we should be beating up. This is a satire. Strike up the band, my son, I'm coming home. Fire up the Faulty Towers DVD. And I'll laugh like Nelson laughed at Trafalgar. I'll laugh like Wellington laughed at Waterloo. To prove our pride, we can watch Allo Allo 2. Strike up Fairy Tale in New York, my son. It's my freedom to shout loud, be heard, slur that one particular word. Who's with me? Defund the Vicar of Dibley. Strike up the Oasis cover band, my son. I'm coming home. I lost my hand hammering in disgust. All these jokes, this dancing. The Sainsbury's advert is clear advancing of the coming culture wars advancing. I lost my leg, legging it to turn off the radio. I lost my eye, rolling my pupils extra hard when they mentioned slaves. What next? Will I lose my loyal tongue because you can't say anything these days? According to a column published on web and paper page. Strike up the best of British playlist, my son, and I will bellow until my lungs gurgle like the waves. My throat tears like an army uniform in the firing line, but skip the songs by Maxine Nightingale and Aswad and Shirley Bassey and the Specials and Corner Shop and Massive Attack and Monsoon and the Prodigy and Skidred and Dave and Nadine Shah and Stormzy. Why does no one represent me? The white minority. As they tear down the statue, as they raise the fist, as they knelt, I called for aid, alight the virtue signal. Brothers in arms respond and kept the fire burning, a rallying cry. This is cultural Marxism, from the echoes of the 1930s to the mind of Anders Breivik, from the deepest dungeon forums to the palaces of Westminster. They keep the fuse burning by Jingo, praise be the latest news cycle. Strike up the sound of two bulldogs headbutting in a bag, my son. Because unlike football, I might not be coming home. I fought for a cause worth dying for. If I lose my life in the culture wars, bring all the MPs to my funeral who tweeted their outrage. Let tears mingle with ale as the journalists and pundits weep for me before typing up another clickable feature. Broadcast the service on talk radio and give a knighthood to the exclamation marks on my keyboard who took the brunt of my furious fists. Say aye, son, I'm off to the culture war. Say aye, son, I'm off to the culture war. And my son put down his phone and replied, Dad, do you think this is all manufactured outrage designed to get social media traction on a dying media industry based on toxic pushback from aggressive discussions about institutional racism? I think calling it a culture war actually demeans the working class who actually fought and died in real wars, often rich men's wars for land and resources to make them even richer based on an imagined sense of country and empire. And really, we need a sensible conversation about the colonial roots and the current state of the UK without these knee-jerk, hyperbolic reactions based on the media and politicians' problem, reaction, solution method. And I said to my son, are you trying to cancel me, you woke prick?
My God. Oh, my cheeks are hurting.
Well,
My
Henry.
cheeks are actually hurting. That was fantastic, Henry.
It's not the way we're used to seeing you, Henry, as you did say. So thank you so much.
It's like when you go on a school trip and your teachers have got like normal clothes on.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
It was like that. It was like that. Are we on? Yeah, we are. Yeah, good.
We are, but I totally loved that piece. It was fantastic.
Thank you so
much.
And
I do think that we did realise that you were being ironic at the time.
I know, but anyone could have tuned in at any moment, so thank you for that, for letting them know.
And explaining.
Henry
Raby. So, moving on swiftly, because we've got to be like that fast in this show. We have Pamela Crowe. And Pamela is an artist and writer. Her work uses text, image and live art to explore how we use words and our voices to define and occupy a personal and shared space in the world. Her work has been shortlisted for the Bridport Poetry Prize 2019, the National Poetry Competition 2020, and her first collection, The Bell Tower, is forthcoming with the Emma Press. And you can find Pamela Crowe on Instagram at Pamela_Crowe_Pamela and at pamelacrowe.com on the web. So take it away, Pamela.
Thank you. And thank you very much for having me along tonight. It's brilliant to be here.
You're welcome.
In such amazing company. So I'm going to read 2 poems to you. The first piece is quite a serious piece. A lot of my poetry is quite funny. I'm often trying to make people laugh and make sense. And the first piece I'm going to read is called Line, and it's very much a vision. It's almost a stream of consciousness of visions in my head, and I wrote it down. So this is Line. I was high up and on a line, not a bird. I was human. It was me. The line stretched onwards into every day. It was what I had to walk on to exist, to comply with time passing. The line was a wire and black and thin and straight. It was taut and barely moved, both unsafe and safe. Beneath it was air, and a city perhaps eventually, tiny and graphite below, peopled but so far away. The air to my right and the air to my left was 6B, pressed so lightly, diagonally. Someone had been shading, but hard to know who in the limitlessness of what was out there. In this world there was no sun, but I once edged past a line of sitting men like sparrows at precarious rest. For the sky held many lines, each so far apart you rarely saw them, but once or twice they'd slice your view. All thin, black, taut and wire, stretching into grey oblivion to places that had not been planned for me. To walk, I had to balance carefully. It took focus and aplomb. You could say I edged and wavered, but never fell, for I held fast to never falling, and was born adept at walking close to nothing, inching its borders, but always staying aligned. I was composed, and I had fortitude, and I was unhappy. But how could anything else have been possible? It was cold. To walk, I had to accept the line above all else, since nothing else was. The line gave me life, and I was tied to it. Each one of us knew this. Once, I got a sense of a net below called Alice, baked from apples and clay, a lattice of faith and love. It was a memory, really, but the heat from it still traced me and would hit the back of my legs. It would rise up to the back of me, and I sometimes sensed I might be able to sit back on it for a while, a mellow swirl of strong female love. Later, those buttery drifts allayed, and I expected little, until a boy with black hair would call up from time to time from his own line below. But he too passed and never became the net I wanted. I knew at night that nets could not be made from single lines, but this did not stop me aching for one each day. The boy came back once as a man and tried to hurt me with a wire, but I saw him off, and it was he who fell. The vacuum of grey around me provides a friendship of sorts. Let's call it a known thing. It is as ambivalent to me as I am to myself, so in that we are partnered, and it is all I have ever known of constancy, and it parts briefly, daily, for my moving form. It does not attempt to call itself love, and for that I am grateful. So, all told, a line, me, the grey, once a pie and its old warmth, once a wire knife and the man I pushed to his death. And finally, since here's the point, the wait for a net below, so I can jump. Thank you.
Pamela Crowe! Fantastic.
And then I've got another second piece. It's just a really short one now. It's called Tomb. It's more literal. It's more of a list poem. But it kind of relates to some of the themes in line. This poem, Tomb, is I wrote a few days after the passing of my dad in 2019. What shall we throw in with you next week, Tutankhamun? Ken. Now is all the things we'll give you that you would have pushed away. A cat, yes, well wrapped. One of your coats, so you are. Tire pressure gauge and 10 clocks at least. Too many umbrellas. Injured birds for you to nurse. And a camera, a fuck-off bag of cameras and lots of film. New skin, a stronger heart, milk. A different dad or a dead dad sooner, lost to you at birth, so you can't live through that. Your mum and you in a cinema, endless her. Some toast and honey at night to clear your throat, ready for shouting. Coasters, a notepad, and the whole of W.H. Smith's Woolworths. There we go, that will do. Oh, and me, so we get another go. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Pamela. And we've met before, haven't we? But only on Zoom. So
Virtually.
This is my first 3D experience of Pamela Crowe, and I loved it. It was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that when you sent us the piece as well, we heard it as an audio piece, but it's just really nice to hear it, be in the same space with you and hear it from. Thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing Tomb as well. So up next, we have our Introduce a Poet section. So every single episode, we introduce a different poet because, of course, we're introducing lots of poets, but generally speaking, they're local poets that submit their work and come onto the show. Our Introduce a Poet tends to be someone from further afield or from a different time that we'd like to share with our audience. Now, I think on this occasion, it might be someone that most people in the room are familiar with, or at least the track that we're going to play, but we felt it very relevant, very pertinent to today's episode, and that's Jill Scott-Heron. So, as an outspoken anti-racist artist whose songs and poems stridently and uncompromisingly decreed racial prejudice and the excesses of capitalism in America, the apartheid in South Africa. And the piece that we're going to play today that we relate to visions is the revolution will not be televised.
There is a conspiracy in the land. It's a conspiracy to wipe out the black community as a whole.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to log in, load up, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself in swag while sitting on your sofa sipping Ace of Spades, watching messages from the local sponsors because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Scheinberg administration during an uncut broadcast of Schindler's List. It won't consist of Instagram pics posted by Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and Ben Jealous eating dinner together at the Juice Bar on 125th Street, showing off their current situation. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by New Nigga Cinema, and it will not star Nene or Flavor Flav, Cicely Tyson, or Tyler Perry. The revolution will not give you street cred. The revolution will not correct erectile dysfunction. The revolution will not make you an American Idol because the revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Muhammad popping champagne at your going away to prison party because you got caught by every camera in the neighborhood kicking that dog and robbing that old lady. CNN will not choose the dumbest eyewitness in the crowd to give a concise description of just what happened. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of brothers shooting down pigs on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of brothers shooting down pigs on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Gwyneth Paltrow being run out of Harlem on a Vespa with a brand new weave. There will be no slow motion or ass shots of Buffy the Body gyrating on a rented Rolls Royce with a wet Black Power t-shirt that she had been saving for just the proper occasion. Real Housewives, Olivia The revolution will not be televised. There will be no YouTube clips of parrots singing the national anthem or Sweet Brown screaming she ain't got time for that. The theme song will not be written by Kanye West or DJ Khaled, nor will it be sung by 2 Chainz, Nicki Minaj, Taylor Swift, or Trinidad James. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be right back after a message about a flash flood, flash fire, or flash mob. You will not have to worry about the gecko in your glove compartment, the tapeworm in your gas tank, or the Trojan man in your back pocket. The revolution will not go better with coke. The revolution will not spray on a darker complexion. The revolution will give you wings. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution won't be on demand, brother. The revolution will be live.
There we go. Thank you so much. The revolution will not be televised, but the revolution will be live.
You just got to be there. But did you realise it was like an updated version?
It was indeed. I don't know if anyone heard any extra lines.
Yeah. It was referencing Tyra Perry and the Kardashians and even like YouTube and things like that, because obviously this was originally brought out. I don't know what year it was.
1970s.
So
it was a 1970s piece originally.
And there was no YouTube then, was there? So
Gil Scott Heron sadly passed away in 2011, I believe. And so this was an updated piece with a few extra things about our modern world thrown in there. So that was wonderful. We thought it was relevant to this show today, and especially we like how he says the revolution will be live. Because
we're obviously a live show and we like anything, but you know, anything revolutionary we love. So it's getting in. So up next we have Lewis Hemingway from COP26 Roadblock. He is here today representing COP26 and the coalition and Roadblock, who is going to tell us about the events coming up in Leeds. So hi, Lewis.
Hi, Lewis.
Hiya. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. I don't know why Lewis got around to the horse at the beginning, but there was a bit of a space and I thought I'd fill it. So please tell us about this COP26, please.
Well, I'm here representing 2 groups. There's Roadblock Sound System, and I'm talking about a specific group of people who are doing outreach for COP26.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of people here know that COP26 is starting on the 6th of November, next month, and probably a lot of people listening as well. But there's a lot of groups doing really excellent outreach for them. But one of these groups, which has gone above and beyond, are a group of Spanish walkers who are walking from, oh God, I've forgotten the name of the place. But it's in the mountains of... Yes. In the northern mountains of Spain. And they're walking all the way from there to Glasgow.
So, sorry, but for our listeners who don't know what COP26 is about, could you just tell us a little bit what their...
Of course, yeah.
Their vision is?
Yeah, COP26 is a meeting of the world's greatest minds and a lot of politicians as well.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Round of applause for that one, Lewis.
It's where a lot of policies are decided on how we tackle environmental change and the environmental crisis that we all are going to be forced with tackling in the coming century/days.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of groups which are raising the profile of it, which it needs to be done. This group are walking an incredible distance. For any visual learners in the crowd, it's a distance of stepping over approximately 9,215,000 dachshunds in a row, which is truly a lot of dachshunds, I'm sure you'll agree. And I think on about just over the 6 millionth dachshund, they're going to arrive into Leeds. And my role with Roadblock Sound System is to give them a good Leeds welcome.
Oh, yay! So when will they be here?
They're arriving on the 15th of October, which happens to be Light Night in Leeds.
Oh, wow.
So if anyone comes to Light Night, you'll see a big area on Brigham, which is where we're going to be welcoming the Spanish walkers once they arrive.
Fantastic.
They're gonna...
Anybody who's around on Light Night, make sure you go
Please
show
join
your
us
support.
on Brigitte on Light Night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sum of it. There's going to be some great acts on. Sarah Smout, who's a cellist, who's going to be opening COP26, is going to be playing, and the Leeds Philharmonic Chorus, which is Leeds' oldest and I think best choir.
Hey.
So please come along if you're available. It's starting at about 7 o'clock on the 15th of October in Brigade. Thank
Fantastic. So what? Sorry, guys. I know you're about to get into your applause and all that at the moment. But what can people do to find out more about these events and how to get involved?
Oh yeah, thank you for that. So if you want to find out more about Light Night, you can find it on the website. The Leeds Council has a website. And if you want to find out more about Roadblock Sound System, then we have an Instagram page called Roadblock Sound System. And I'm actually taking a moment to tell you a bit about Roadblock. Stand Up to Racism, you're probably interested in this. But we're a non-for-profit group that helps grassroots activists and social organisers to do all of the sound and all of the staging for events, because there's been one too many environmental protests with a diesel generator in the corner. Yeah. So we turn up with bike power and with a stage and with a bit of theatre and pizzazz and just take all that difficult bit of organising off people's hands so that they can focus on just doing the activism, getting the people on the streets.
Interesting. I can see us being good friends in the future, actually, Lewis.
I can say firsthand that this is a very needed thing, and I also have been involved in a lot of events where we've really struggled with sound, so that's such an amazing offering to the activist communities in the city.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that information with us, Lewis. And yeah, everybody want to get involved in COP26 and especially like the event where the walkers are coming home on the 15th. Go get yourself, online, look up what's going on, and definitely get yourself down to the Light Night.
Indeed, and I'll just share a couple of dates again, just so that people have got them in their minds. So on the 15th of October, coming up in a couple of weeks, the Spanish walkers are going to be arriving into Leeds. They're going to be taking part in Leeds Light Night, which is what Lewis was just talking about, on Brigate. And then the next day, they're going to be having an event in Chapeltown, on Chapeltown Road at 10 a.m, where the Spanish walkers will continue on through Leeds, on to the next leg of their journey, which is Harrogate. And people will be celebrating and cheering them on there, and there'll be stalls and food there as well. So there's lots happening that weekend. And then on the 6th of November, the COP26 will actually open in Glasgow and across the country, and there will be an event in Millennium Square in Leeds then as well. And I'm really, really excited to the weekend on the 15th and 16th of October. I can't wait to see what happens on Light Night, so thank you so much from Lewis.
We will be sharing all the information again on our Loudspeaker Facebook page. Which is it, Loudspeaker Radio Show or Loudspeaker Show?
It's Facebook.
I say it wrong all the time.
It's facebook.com/Loudspeaker Show.
So anything that you've missed, you can go there and you can find everything that you've heard tonight. And obviously there'll probably be a link to re-watch the show.
Indeed, a YouTube link. It's super fancy.
Through.
So, next up we have the artist Keeks. Keeks is a 20-year-old songwriter from Leeds. He's been writing music since he was 13, and it's been a crucial focus for him over the years. Although he hasn't released much music recently, he has never stopped writing lyrics, and we're so excited he's going to share some of his lyrics with us today on the show. So give it up, a very warm welcome to Keeks.
No, it's okay. So, because I can't stand silence.
Well, you just cannot have dead air on radio.
I just can't cope with it. Two things. First of all, Keeks is my son.
Yay! Keeks.
I know people were looking at me thinking, oh my God, I can't believe she's got a son. But it's a true story. Second of all, Keeks was actually supposed to be on our Loudspeaker Live first show.
That's right, yeah.
But had got struck down by his own restrictions with COVID symptoms and waiting for test results and things like that. So we couldn't have him in a confined space at the time. So now we have a second opportunity to have him in the studio.
Yeah, it would have been, it'd have been nice to be to that other show. I'd written something for it, and I was really upset not to be there. And I watched it live. It was a good show.
So check out that show. That was the Father's Day
Do
episode.
you want to tell us about the track that you're going to do now?
To be fair, I haven't really got much to tell you about the track.
Is it self-explanatory?
I hope it is. It's self-explanatory to myself and when I listen to it, so I hope that people get the gist of it. But it's definitely confusing, so I wouldn't be surprised.
You're ready when you are, Keeks.
Great.
Yeah, I'm ready. I get mad when I start freestyling. Pick up a pen and I start free firing. Open up my brain and I start rewiring. Straight to the top, watch how I breathe violin. Watch how I zoom by. Boom, I'm due to blow, but there's a due in due time. Go to the studio, I'm a booth guy. Used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! As a UI. Put him in a graveyard, hit him with a spell card. Use that same card. Me and you are different. We ain't got the same charge, different energy. We are not the same dog. Build up my future architects, I got work to do, so I'ma hardly rest, and I'm soon to blow, so I'll chart the best. I roll up every man, then I spark the rest. I got 16 straight through his heart and chest. Kill every bitch in the game, till no dogs are left. Go in this thing, play that part the best, for I'll end up with more when I start with less. Fucked, didn't have an income, pick up the mic, spit fire like dim sum. That's when you realise, lose some, win some, peak situations. Yes, I've been in some, yes, I've been through some. Life got terrible, just like twosome. Shit got grimy, gruesome. Express on the beat, really stressed with the weed, just blew one. Can't rest on my feet, need my shoes on. Resting with sleep, for I'm destined to be. See the more God's there, but especially me, I'm a new one. I could spit this bar for the rest of the beat, but I test and I leave and I move on. I don't care if he's mentioning me, get wrecked on a beat, tell him do one. Will it reflect in my dream? What I've invested in me, trying to be infested with peace. Please make sure that you press and repeat. Made my own wave, but is it reflect? Fam, I've got neutrons, big fat spliff that they can't get twos on. Made my own wave that they can't come cruise on. I don't care who's on. Pick up the mic, spit fire like dim sum. Pick up the mic, spit fire like dowsing. That's when you realise man's been counting. Down, up, upwards, top of the mountain. Swinging my nunchucks, carry on shouting. You get an upcut, said he's got good bud, but that loud is not in my good books. Man, I've got good bars and I've got good looks. Better than me, but nah, nigga, good luck. Working on a few projects, so this one here is a different vibe. Way ahead of everybody else, so realistically, I must have been born in a different time. I can run back and forth in the future, I go the distance. I know that the only hope is to open the listener's eye. Know that it's cold when you live this life, when you roll with a twisted mind. Only hope is to turn it to gifted rhyme, but I wrote in some cryptic type. They don't know what he's talking about. Switch this guy, grip this mic like I gripped his pipe, and now he can't breathe anymore. Man who's better than me said fuck that, I can't see anymore. He's not alive, send him to sleep, no rockabye. Who told you that I need spin it to be popping eyes? What a lie. I know my dreams are to be prophesied. Susie cream, I'll be cropping guys. Supreme, I'm on top of guys. Eat me a sense soup bean, start chopping guys. Come for the ones who wanna act street and run up the teeth with a lot of lies. Man, I can't stand it. I jump on the beat, sweep off the feet. Man, I'm so clean, no bandit. Trust I'm sicker than sick man's ranted. A man who's better than me is a damn myth. Thank you.
Studio.
A little bit like Henry. I've met him in a different context. I've seen him in a new light.
Oh, yeah, you haven't seen him perform before.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Keeks. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and just bringing a new energy into the room.
One of the things that we love about Loudspeaker and what we always try to bring into Loudspeaker is lots of different types of spoken words, different topics, different artists, and have a great balance of content throughout the show. So thank you so much, Keeks.
So I think next up
is
our interview with our interviewee Peter Spafford, who is the curator of this Writing on Air Festival. Now we can clap.
Peter Spafford.
Yay.
So we're going to be talking to Peter, and he's going to be sharing a few of his pieces with us also today.
Yes, so Peter Spafford is a playwright, poet and musician. He has written for theatre, musical theatre, opera, TV and radio. He is also the director of Words right here at the chapel and has a brand new poetry collection out with Yaffle Press. Hi, Peter.
Hi, D3.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting us to be part of your Writing on Air Festival.
It was an obvious thing to do. It's great to be part of it.
Great. So, tell us a little bit about the festival and how you got it started.
Well, I don't know if anybody was in the chapel before we did things to it, but it really was a bit of a wreck. There were pigeons flying in and out of the roof. It was freezing cold. There wasn't the floor here. It was, and we used to do kind of overnight music events, and we put some words in there as well, which gradually sort of evolved into a writing festival, and we froze to death. It was damp. It wasn't very nice, but they were great and very memorable events. And writing on air kind of grew out of that, really, as a sort of 4 day. It's become a 4-day festival of writing on the radio, hence writing on the air. And it's usually about sort of 100, 200 people take part, either as performers or writers. And yeah, we're very proud of it. We love doing it, and it's the 6th year now of doing it.
Wow, 6th year.
And this is postponed, obviously, from March last year. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. So, coming out of pandemic.
Yeah, all that. Yeah.
It's like being reborn, isn't it? It's like is it when we say BC and AD and all that?
Yeah.
This is like post PP. This is like PP, post pandemic. You know what I mean? Anything that happened before then, it was a different time. So, please tell us a little bit about you and your poetry.
Okay. Well, poetry is one thing I do. Poetry is the thing I love doing most. But as anybody who tries to make a living out of poetry will attest, there's not a lot of money in poetry. So I do other things, and I write plays and scripts for radio and so on. But poetry is what I love. I love reading poetry. I love hearing poetry. I've loved hearing some of the stuff tonight. It's been wonderful, and all the way through the festival. And I'm like most people who write poetry. I probably started writing out of spite at the world when I was probably about 15 or 16.
Brilliant reason, though, isn't it?
Well, it's a good reason, and it gives you energy, doesn't it? It's that kind of energy of, and
it's
you
where
do
you
it.
find your passion, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and you pour it out. And so I started then, but actually in terms of spoken word, I think I was inspired really to do that by working here, because I started working here about 10 years ago, and a lot of young people who started, who were with us then, were just getting up, with their poetry and reading it. They were getting up with guitars or with instruments and playing them without any fear at all. And I just thought, that is, I could do that. So I tried doing it anyway. So I'd never really read much poetry out. I had bits published, and I write poetry. I'm very much a page poet. And then suddenly I thought, right, these people gave me the energy, really, these young people, to do that and to give it a go, both with my music and also with the poetry. So I've got them to thank, actually.
Okay, that's fantastic. So you're saying that you get a lot of inspiration from the young people that you've worked with?
Absolutely. And if you heard, I don't know if you heard it, but you can listen back again. We had a discussion this evening with about 10 young people and Nick Ellaby from Oasis School of Human Relations talking about their experience of the pandemic. They were so perceptive and so insightful and said some very beautiful things. I really, really recommend listening back to it. The program's called Oasis. And it was, I do. I really love working with young people. In fact, we're taking a group of young people to COP26.
There you go.
We're taking them. We're going up on the train. We're going to do some hassling. We're going to do some interviewing and bring it back. And it's going to be great. Yeah.
There you go, Louis.
We'll be there with the Spanish.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, we won't be walking
And
there.
it was a great link as well that we didn't actually pre-organise.
Yeah, we didn't know that.
Just sort of slipped that one
So
in.
that is fantastic. So what would you say would be is the highlight of your career?
I think career is a word that I have a bit of a problem with, because it implies some kind of plan, which I have never had.
Journey then. Let's say journey.
But better, journey.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this, because luckily I had forward notes of these questions, although I've been completely brain dead at this time of night. I was thinking about this, and one of my first professional jobs of writing, I had to write a script from having lived with Humberside Police. It was a script about the police force in Humberside, and I sort of lived with them basically for about 8 months. And at the end of it, I was working with and writing it with the director of the theatre company, Remel Theatre Company. And I took all sorts of interviews, and in the end, one of the main threads of the play was a woman who was married to a bent copper, basically, and what her experience was like. And I just remember the first night of the play, first performance, and sitting there, and I hadn't really become real to me, but suddenly the theatre started filling up, and it was full of police, basically, people who I'd done the interviews with. I mean, we toured it around the country in the end. And so that was one thing, and I thought, right, I've written this play. They're now going to witness this thing They're either going to like it, they're going to hate it. I don't know what's going to happen. But it was a real, I just felt a real buzz from that. And, you know, and I thought something might change from this. And the other thing was that I was sitting absolutely next there to the woman I'd received, but just by chance, but to the partner of the bent copper. And she was sitting, and I thought, if whatever her physical reaction is to this play, I will know, because she's sitting next to me. If she shrinks, if she relaxes, whatever, I was feeling it very viscerally. So I think actually that was a real highlight, because it was, you know, it was the first time I really thought I have the power of the words. I've done this research. Here's the play. Let's see what happens.
And I think we all want to know now, what was her physical reaction?
Her physical reaction actually was very positive, so that was a relief. I mean, in the set, I mean, she just said afterwards, "Thanks very much." You know, she wasn't effusive.
Okay.
She wasn't going to be, but I think she felt honoured by it in the sense that it felt true for her, and that's the best I think one could hope for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic.
Telling the truth and speaking what feels real and authentic to them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're going to share one of your live spoken word pieces with us before we continue with our interview.
Okay.
Would you like to take the mic and share with us which of your poems you're going to perform tonight?
Okay.
And
Well,
why?
I will go to this mic here. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Actually, no, I'll go to this one.
I was going to say that is too small for you, Peter.
It's a bit small. I'm going to read something from this book, which was my first book, came out 4 or 5 years ago, called Quick. And there's something I'd like you to do before I read this poem, which might make it more sort of physical for you. I'd like you to take your index finger, and I'd like you to place it on your right knee. I'm watching, so you have to do it. And then I want you to take your index finger to behind the knee, and just have a little feel in there. Yeah. So that's what the poem is about, that place on the body. It's called Knee Pit, because of course, there's, as we'll become aware, there isn't other name for it, as far as I know. And I think some of the theme of vision is important to this writing on air. And sometimes I think it's a function of writers and poets and artists to point out things that aren't often seen, or perhaps go unseen and invisible and neglected. Just take my glasses off to read the poem. It's called Knee Pit. Knee pit, shallow vale, unnamed, unodorous. Lost resort, which fingers rarely visit, save to scratch. Armpit, is coy with promise, sloping to places we wish to go. The pimple of sweat that slips from shade to nipple. Where does humble knee pit lead? To sock and ankle. Pity knee pit. Stooge to knee, that flashy joint that springs and swivels, then in mid-age grumbles to pain. Does knee pit complain? Ever chewed pills for knee pit or smoothed on cream? Plain, unlauded, B-side, dark side of the moon. Unloved park at the edge of town, unfrequented room. Friend, I beg, when next the hand or mouth go travelling, tickle the one who seldom smiles. Coax with tongue, the introvert place that does not plump or glisten for love, but waits. Go down, go further down.
Well, thank you so much for that, Peter.
Bringing some light onto the back of our knees.
I actually, I really understood why you were. It's a good metaphor for the things that, as you say, aren't seen, aren't talked about, little understood, and a bit ignored in terms of important issues or things that we need to address that we just don't. Yeah. So I really like how you've tied that into the show and the topic. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to just move and face you differently so that I'm on mic to answer these questions, because I feel like I keep moving my head too much. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to hearing more from Peter. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now about your work and kind of what it means to you and what it brings to other people as well. So as a spoken word artist, you'll be aware of the impact of your words on others. You know, whether it makes you, whether it provokes them, heals, makes them laugh. And that's the listener, and we get a lot from spoken word. But what does the artist get, or in this particular instance, what do you get from writing and also performing spoken word?
That's a good point. I think for me and poetry, so I mean, I do a lot of work collaboratively with people. So I do, you know, when you write a play, obviously there's the actors, there's the director. If you write something for radio, there's the technology, there's producers, there's people editing it, and there's all sorts of collaborations involved. I also do a lot of work with people, like the young people here, or I do, you know, work out in the community, writing with people. But poetry is just me and it. You know, and you'll know what that means as well. Anybody who writes poetry, I don't have to mediate it through anybody. I can, you know, if I want to change a comma, I will. I don't have to tell anybody. I don't have to consult with anybody. So it's my way of being completely me, if you like. I mean, I think that it doesn't. What I like doing also with poetry is writing in different voices. And so sometimes there are, in this book, for instance, there are poems that I write in the first person that aren't necessarily me. I think sometimes with poetry, people assume that that's a confessional poem, but actually, I'm just experimenting with the voice. So I think that's also a really appealing part of poetry for me. But I love it, and I think somebody said it's a bit of a compulsion. Somebody said earlier with their writing, and I just love making stuff. And it doesn't have to be a poem. Actually, it can be anything. I like the idea. I like the thing of just starting with an idea, starting with nothing, having an idea, and making it, and then giving it out, and seeing and hearing the reaction of other people, and hopefully they get something from it.
Thank you for that answer. And I think that all artists and performers can probably relate to that feeling of creating something from nothing or from your mind and then putting it out there into the world and seeing how people respond. And I really like what you said about the fact that poetry is just, you know, me, myself, and I can move a comma. I don't have to, you know, connect with the producer or the beat maker or, you know, whatever it might be that's going to help us bring that together. So I've never heard it quite answered like that before, but that makes perfect sense to me, absolutely. Thank you. So you've been doing...
Do you write, actually, Sarah?
Oh, do I
Well,
write?
that's a question, isn't it, Sarah?
No, I've never known that.
Sarah does write. Sarah is going to start performing soon. You've heard it here first. I've made a rule.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, that's sorry to put you on the spot there, but
No, I have got some poetry, and my first ever performance. So I'm not going to get away with not performing my poetry anymore. It's just basically not possible. Everyone else gives and shares and is vulnerable. So, you know, yes, I absolutely must. And the next first will probably be at our next event, Open Source Arts, on the 16th of October. So I guess come down and check me out there.
Yeah, nice plug, Sarah. Nice plug.
Yeah.
But back to you, Peter. So you've been doing this for some time now, by the sounds of your explanation of how long you've been involved in writing. But for young and aspiring artists who you do work for a lot, like what advice are you going to give to them about starting to write poetry? The one particular thing I think of when I ask this question is a lot of people that I speak to who are poets and are spoken word artists say they used to write loads as a kid, and then there's like a middle bit of time where people stop creating in the same way, especially with poetry.
So what advice would you give Sarah about writing and performing her poetry?
So, what advice would you give people, young people who are getting started on writing?
And people of
and Sarah.
People of Sarah's
Young
age.
people.
Give me some
like
advice,
Sarah.
Peter, please.
Well, it sounds like you're already doing it, but I would say the main thing is not to censor yourself in any way. I think there are so many voices in our heads going, you know, oh, I'm no good, or it sounds a bit like that, or, you know, it's been said before, it's not original. The main thing is to actually just do it, because it will be you, because you're you. You know, it'll whatever. You've got this language, we've got this language, we share it, but you're the person who's shaping those words and putting those words together. It will be Sarah. So
I did genuinely mean advise the young listeners, by the way.
I know.
But if you've already been thrown under the bus, why don't we just, whilst you're there?
But that's the other thing. I think we assume that it's only young people who start right. I mean, you can start at any age at all. Alan and Lucy in the performance ensemble this evening is those older people, some of them doing that for the first time. So you can start at any age, Sarah. But it's kind of, no, I think, whatever age you are starting at, the main thing is to do it, just getting it down and then see what you've got. But don't do that thing of, no, I can't do that. That's not for me. I won't go through that door. Because it's for everybody. And I think the other thing is poetry. People have put off poetry. I don't know what have you ever been taught poetry at school? Nah, there you go. But if you have been, a lot of people, young people, put off poetry by the capital P, and your poetry has to be analysed. It has to mean something. And it's like a puzzle. It has to be cracked. And if you don't crack it, then you feel stupid. And then you go, no, I'm not doing poetry for the rest of your life. It's like me with maths. I feel like that with maths, I have to say. But it's so I think, again, it's you just to get through that. It's just words on a page. And somebody said it's the right words in the right order for you. For you. There's not any right up there. It's the right words for you.
So right words in any order then?
Yeah, that's pleasing to you. That expresses your meaning, that expresses what you want to, and feels pleasing to you.
Yeah, that's why poetry is so absolutely beautiful for the writer as much as it is for the listener and the reader. Yeah. Thank you so much. On that note, I'd like to hear some of your own poetry again, please.
All right.
Are you ready for your second piece? Because we are, aren't we, guys?
Yeah.
Yay!
Well, which one shall I read? Okay. So I'm going to read. Actually, I won't. I'll read this one.
He's doing that creative thing, Oh, God. Which poem shall I read?
Yeah, well, no. Which poem shall I read? No, I don't mean that. I read this the other night here, actually, but for a different audience, so that's okay. And it's the first poem in this book again. It's getting quick. And the other thing about poetry that it kind of allows you to do is to imagine, if you weren't in a place, it allows you to imagine what it might have been. A friend of mine saw a horse get loose in a supermarket. She was in the supermarket. A horse was, just got in. It was a stray horse. She didn't know where it was from. And I wasn't there, but I imagined I was there because what a fantastic thing to see. So here you go. It's called Transitional. First, that crazed tattoo on the buffed floor. Woman screaming, ramming a stack of trays. Basket, a still life spilt of apples bouncing, tins a skitter. Then himself, rearing, boxing the air. Who will tell from whence he bolted? Light Brigade, Edwardian funeral, Gloucester hunt. Catch that Winnie, watch him skate and skirl up the fruits and down the salads aisle. Barrows of kumquats, apricots tumble like tables in a temple. Eyes white frightful, knowing himself displaced from myth. He turns now, flings his mane once more as towers of herbs and cities of spices fall. Take stock before you sweep the scattered basmati and restack the beans. Before that furtive glance at the phone, before the next poem, hold him fuming in your eye, not as augury or metaphor, just and for all he was, a horse in Tesco.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thanks for being our interviewee today, for sharing your work and for putting this festival together. So thank you so much. Everyone, Peter Spafford.
Peter, we haven't finished with you yet, so could you get back over here, please? We didn't say that it was all right for you to go sit down. We didn't say that it was okay.
Peter, it's way too soon.
Chop, chop.
We've got very important questions to ask you now. Those were just the simple, easy ones.
Oh, no. I told you at the beginning of this show, you know, we mix things up all the time around
Okay,
here.
I know,
Keep you on your toes. You can't just
I'm on my
decide
toes.
what loudspeaker are going to
I'm on
do.
my toes.
We make the rules.
Are you ready?
So,
4D3's quick fire round.
I forgot about this. This is
I
terrifying.
love this quick fire round. So I'm not even going to do my spiel that I normally do before it because I
This
feel like
time of night.
people already know that I'm lying. So I'm just going to say, will you please take part in our quick fire round section?
I've got no choice.
Very important questions just to get to know a little bit more about our artist. Important information that we need to know.
God.
So Peter Spafford,
Yeah,
are you ready?
yeah,
Peter Spafford,
yeah.
mash or roasties?
Roasties.
Tomato sauce, fridge or cupboard?
Fridge.
Nightwear or naked?
Oof. Depends on the season, D3. Yeah, probably pyjamas.
Sweet or savoury?
Savoury.
Gecko or guinea pig?
What?
Gecko or guinea pig? Lizard? Fluffy or scaly?
Yeah, actually, No, gecko. Actually,
Gecko.
no, we've had guinea pigs. They're horrible.
Thank you for answering.
Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, I'm into it now. I'm going to go on.
That was it.
Can I go
And-
now?
Yeah. And I have to say, I'm actually back in the pyjamas now.
No, yeah, sorry.
I'm in
it's
the
time.
pyjamas. Yeah,
It's time
because
for the PJs.
do you know what? It was actually after onesies where I came into PJs because I got into the
I thought you
onesies.
meant the weather.
Oh
You
no.
were back in the weather wearing pyjamas right now.
Thank you, Peter. You are allowed to sit. You
thank
are allowed to sit down. No, because I got into the onesies first of all.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had like a brainwave.
They're just too annoying at
if
the
I just,
at the
if
toilet.
I just wear pyjamas, then I can just only pull the bottom half down
you
when I
go.
go to the toilet instead of doing that whole thing.
There you go.
So it turns out, pyjamas are really cool, aren't they? It's going to catch on.
No, it
Well,
is.
that's because, like I say, we have to,
And also on the topic of onesies, probably never wear a onesie to a festival.
Oh, yeah, that's what Sarah has recently learned about going to festivals.
So next up, we have another wonderful artist. I don't know if you'll agree, but we put a lot of poetry into these shows and a lot of amazing performances. We have alternative poet Bethany Rose.
So Bethany Rose identifies as a survivor, and she shares insight into trauma, panic, and 15 years of mental health struggles. Take it away, Bethany Rose.
Thank you. So I'm going to do two pieces today, and poetry is how I sort of verbalise what's going on in my head, and I thought with the theme being vision, that was probably the best way to sort of express it, because if I'm sharing what's going on in my head, this is the physical way of doing that. I remember my first panic attack. Intoxicated in the early hours, sitting on cold pavements outside closing bars. A night of sticky floors and cheap vodka. Drink it by the double because trouble is on its way, and I told you it wasn't safe. Take a shot. Take one, take two, take three. Now I'm sat on the floor. I don't remember leaving. I came outside for quiet, but the air is too thick and my lungs have forgotten how to breathe. The music's too loud and I can't feel the beat, and I'm sat on the floor surrounded by feet and still lit cigarettes. Broken bottles, dropped in puddles, and, excuse me, love, have you got a light if it's not too much trouble? There's too much noise, too many voices, and I can't work out which are outside my head, and I need to go home to my nice warm bed. But my body is stuck, and getting me home in one piece will be nothing but luck. Thank you. Thank you. My second piece is a little bit deeper, and it's to do with a trauma response. So the brain is split into three. So you've got your short-term memory, your long-term memory, and if you're in a state of trauma and you've got nothing to help you in your short term, nothing to help you in your long term, it then goes to your reptilian part of your brain. And I found this sort of really interesting, and this is the fight or flight response, but it's not just fight or flight. There are 5 different sections, and this is something I sort of explored within this piece. The reptilian brain has been activated. Fight, flight, freeze, flop, and friend. I drink until my stomach cannot hold and shards of you come spilling out, scratching and scraping at every lump in my throat, catching on every word I cannot say. When the brain cannot respond to trauma, it copes in the best way it can. It does this so it can survive. It does this so we can survive. Fight, flight, freeze, flop. You were meant to be my friend. I am the 9% who put the act into words. They may be words my voice cannot form, but words all the same. And what you did to me was not just a game or a bit of fun, but when all is said and all is done, my skin did not consent to yours. And no is not a word that your ears can contemplate, but it's not too late, and silence is no longer an option. You used to say you'd make sure I was home safe. But did you know the opposite of safety was you? The reptilian brain has been activated, and survival is all I have left. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bethany, for them insights.
Thank you for sharing, Bethany. Thank you for sharing your very personal poetry. And I'm so glad that poetry is a vehicle for you to look at those things in your life and express. So thank you.
And I believe, we'll give a bit of solidarity to our people out there listening who can identify with the things that you're saying. So it's really good to get, like we talked about this before, having different scopes and different perceptions and, ways that people are using this vision topic. So it's really good. And thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
And so some of the ways that people can, develop their writing skills, not just to become a writer or a poet, is actually to use those as a tool for themselves to work through different feelings, emotions, experiences, memories, and writing workshops and writing groups can really help with that. And so next up we're going to have Leanne Brown, originally from Ayrshire, currently living in Harrogate. And Leanne's going to tell us about the Scribblers Union, an online writing poetry group, and the Yorkshire group, who undoubtedly utilise poetry together to work through their own experiences. So Leanne, take it away.
So Scribblers Union started at the very start of the pandemic. It was started by a successful poet called Kevin Peagilday, who's Glasgow based, and he was doing loads of spoken word nights. He was doing a spoken word cabaret called Sonnet Youth. He's a musician as well with Kevin Peagilday in the Glasgow Cross. He was teaching. The pandemic, of course, came along and that all stopped overnight. There's this big wave of goodwill through the nation of everyone trying to support each other and put their skills to help everyone else out. And he thought, what can I do? What can a poet do? So he came up with the Scribblers Union, which is an online writing group. He put a call out over Twitter, and he started initially with one cohort of 15 writers, which was extremely successful. Everyone meets on Zoom once a week and have a guided class, and then share their work at the end of the class. And the term builds up to a performance at the end of each block. The first group was so successful, he started a second group, which was when I joined and when Laura, who you heard earlier tonight, joined. There's writers from all over the UK, and even one writer in Canada have joined Scribblers Union. When Laura and Vic Leeson and I spoke at the Leeds Poetry Fest, we mentioned Scribblers Union there, and we got another couple of members from Leeds off the back of that. So there's a real strong Yorkshire cohort involved. It's just the most amazing way of learning how to write. I had never written or performed poetry before. I had a pathological fear of public speaking. It's the most supportive group I've ever been part of. Everything that you've said about working with young people tonight, and also about processing trauma, all of that stuff, it's all come out for me in Scribblers Union, and I've just never heard such incredible work. Everyone comes on so much faster because you're with a group of peers who all support each other. We bounce ideas off each other all the time. I think we've got the most active WhatsApp group in the entire known universe. lots of the members have gone on to have real success. Laura is Islam finalist for Hammer and Tongue. She'll be at the Royal Albert Hall next year. We've had one performer at the Edinburgh Festival. There's been several readers on BBC Upload. And a spoken word piece on BBC The Social, which is a Scottish sort of sketch that goes out, the BBC do. The best thing for me, I've been so proud to be involved with, is that there was a volume of poems published, Scribblers Union Volume 1. Very excited that it was titled that, because it implied that there was going to be a Scribblers Union Volume 2.
There you go.
Which is currently at the printers and will be out soon.
Yay.
There is going to be an upcoming Scribblers Union gig in Leeds. And we're also doing a gig in Glasgow for COP26. So
oh, you see now? All ties in. It all ties in.
I think we're all going to COP26.
It's so nice that we have similar visions as well that we're working towards.
Yeah, it feels like a real community, doesn't it? Poetry and spoken word. So if you're interested in finding out more about Scribblers Union, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook under Scribblers Union. You can watch back all our previous performances on the Facebook platform, and it's also worth giving Kevin P. Gilday a follow and seeing some of his amazing work as well. He's got a book coming out very soon as well.
Thank you so much, Leanne. Thank you for doing the spotlight
Fantastic.
for us and sharing about the Scribblers Union.
Yay, thank you, Leanne Brown.
Oh, we're getting near to the end now.
I know, it's that time, isn't it? So we have our last performer coming up now. And our last performer is Terence Isaacs. Terence is a Guyanese poet, author, medical doctor, currently based in Leeds. And his poetry explores race, masculinity, politics, gender-based violence, black empowerment, amongst other social issues. He was a finalist in Guyana's inaugural National Poetry Slam, a performer at Voices 7 in Grenada, a 2020 Leeds Leader Poetry / Composer participant, and he has performed at several poetry events in and around Leeds. He also has published a self-help book, You Are Your Biggest Critic, and won a collection of poetry, Love Me Unconditionally, on Amazon. So check that out, guys.
Give it up for Terence!
Give it up for Terence.
Good night, everybody. Thank you guys very much for having me here. I was going to do this poem by memory, but I think it's going to fail me, so don't mind me if I use my phone for a bit. The poem's called Perception, and when I spoke with Sarah a couple of days ago, I realized that I wanted to do something different, and I thought about what vision really means to me. And one of the things that kept coming back to my mind at the time was, how are we handling the pandemic? So this poem is a little bit about that. It's called Perceptions. It's funny how we see life in reverse, our existence rehearsed, cursing our forefathers' vile mistakes, while claiming to refrain from continuing the same, but time's the clumsy teacher, unable to assess our blindness, so we flunk lessons in kindness, incapable of plucking coarse wool from our eyes, yet having the time of our lives. So imagine, in 2020, when given the opportunity to realize the vision and escape this pandemic, we opted to skew our view, bridled self with blinders, tunneling our sight as we huddled and hoarded resources. Yet we refuse to envisage how these actions distort acuity. Ironically, now in 2021, some say that 2020 had won, creating yet another spectacle, leaving us with cortical cecity. So how can we learn when history repeats herself and rich eyes are fixated on wealth, when we have enough vaccines to inoculate the most vulnerable, but somehow that isn't profitable? Because apparently all men aren't born equal, so we cast them off into the periphery while we swear to foresee a future whereby things return to normal. But what is normal when the future stays uncertain as we continue to turn a blind eye to the have-nots? And Shmurda said, a problem shared is a problem solved, but the way that this year has evolved makes me wonder, what is the solution to the pollution of the vision? Because we have made it our mission to ignore the poor, to deny them life, to increase their strife while they strive to merely survive. So how can we gain insight when hindsight is the crutch to which we clutch as our faults are exposed? But I suppose it's about how our myopic views and how we cloak that with good intentions. But I see through the illusion, past the confusions and the opaque lenses, for it's clear to me that we are our forefathers' worst nightmares, because we share a similar fate, a capitalist trait, passed down through generations of greed. So tell me, when we think of our children's children, do they scare us, or will they be our wildest dreams?
Wow.
Woo!
Well, I think that was a good ending to our show. Terence, I haven't come across you before. I have now. I'm not going to forget about it.
You'll be seeing Terence around on some of our events soon. Terence, that was a wonderful, wonderful piece of poetry that really captured what this episode and this topic is all about. So thank you so much.
And the imagery that it created as well, you know, so it gives you the vision in your mind, whether you wanted it or not. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So thank everybody for being part of the show. Thank you to you all for being here and sharing your organisation or your pieces of work with us. We really appreciate both of those. We're also going to be sharing everything that we have on our Facebook page. So any links that you might have missed, you can find at facebook.com/Loudspeaker Show.
He's got it.
Yay. Or you can go to Chapel FM and search for Loudspeaker, because also on there we have our previous shows. So if you've just started to tune into us and you think, oh my God, that's such an amazing show. Well, we've got another 7. So you can go look at our back catalogue. So if that's what you like to do.
Yeah, we've done.
When you're doing the cleaning and stuff like that, I like to put it on.
Wonderful for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do it, environment. We've done pride topic, racial justice. Just have a little dig through and see, and start somewhere that inspires or interests you.
Upcoming, our upcoming show, which will be November, because we're only a once a month show. It's hip-hop history. That's the topic for that show. So I just thought I'd put that out there, let people know, because November is Hip-Hop History Month. And so there'll be a lot of things going on in and around Leeds. So we're going to be talking to them. So if anybody out there who's been listening has got any poems or spoken word pieces about anything to do with hip-hop or the history of hip-hop or, just in that kind of genre itself, please get in touch and submit to us at So this is why I get confused, Sarah, because our the email for submissions is loudspeakerradioshow@gmail. So that's got the radio in there.
It has.
So for submissions, it's loudspeakerradioshow@gmail.com. Please submit to us there. As for this, I think it's been an absolutely amazing show. Thank you to all our performers who have been Laura Graham, Henry Rabb, Pamela Crow, Keeks, Peter Spafford, Bethany Rose, and Terence D. Isaacs.
And thank you so much to our spotlight guests, our audience that have been with us today as well, to the live studio audience, to the amazing team at Chapel FM who help us to put these shows together and this festival together. And do check out the work that Chapel FM are doing across the board, community-wise, arts-wise. And thank you to my amazing co-host, D3.
Yay! And thank you to my amazing co-host, Sarah. And let's give it up to everybody that made it such a great event. Thank you all.
at just 6 minutes past the hour. That's a wrap.
Between land and sea.
Between sleep and waking.
Between dreams and reality.